always remember that good people will trump good processes
Mm.
every day. So if you have chaos in your store or whatever, sure, you can refine some processes and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's good people communicating with each other and serving the team. So attitude is a huge deal with that, right? If you have chaos in your shop, like have 2 huddles a day. Have a huddle in the morning, talk about all the cars that are on the lot, and then have a huddle before you go home and talk about all the cars that are on the lot. And all of a sudden, the entire shop comes together.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us again for another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. And today we have an amazing guest that I have been trying to get on the podcast for a little bit now, and I'm so glad that we were able to make this work. But we have Michael Rosenberger, or The Berg, as you guys can see here if you're on watching it on YouTube. He's here with us. He has Tommy's High Tech Auto and Tommy's High Tech Euro, both in the greater Dallas area, but he's actually living in Nashville, Tennessee right now. And he's a coach with ShopFix. But what I really want to dig into today is learning a lot about how he manages to pull this off, managing something from afar. But Michael, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kelsey. Yeah, finally your my timing and your timing matched up. So
Yep.
yeah, it's good to be on.
Yeah, very excited that this worked out today. So Michael, why don't we'll start off with just giving a background in terms of how you got started in this industry and kind of your journey up until kind of this point today.
Sure. So when I was 13, my dad moved my family up to Knoxville, Tennessee, and opened up 4 Midas shops with 2 other partners. And so I was homeschooled. So I would go in during the day with my dad and sweep the floors and just listen and learn and all that, and get my schoolwork done, in the evenings. And then, if I got that done, I could go back to work the next day. So it's pretty cool. I learned a lot, had some great teachers in the beginning. I was a mechanic for a long time, and then also service advisor, and being the owner's son, you kind of did every position that you had to. So just kind of filled in wherever. Ended up getting, fast forward to 2006, got married, and my wife wanted to attend Texas Women's University. So I moved my toolbox down and started at the Midas down in Denton, Texas, just north of Dallas. Worked there for a few months, and found another shop that was super busy, and had a couple customers. I think after the third customer told me, well, we appreciate you, walking us through everything, but we're going to take it over to Tommy at Tommy's High Tech Auto. It's like, who the heck is this Tommy guy? And went over there, and 5 interviews later, he finally hired me. I applied as a technician, but he only had one spot open. He goes, I was walking out the door of like the last interview, and he goes, hey, how are you with customers? I was like, I'm okay. I can hold my own. And he was like, well, why don't you start in a couple weeks? You can be at the front counter. I need somebody up there. Okay. So I just jumped in and put my toolbox in the corner, and started working as a service advisor May of 2006. Fast forward to January of 2017, I ended up actually buying him out. So yes, pretty crazy.
That's
and then
cool.
Yeah, that's the first part of the story. I'm sure there's cut out a lot, but yeah, that was the quick version.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and then give a little bit of background on this location. Is it's 17 bays.
Yep.
Was it always that way, or did you grow it to be even bigger?
So when I first started there, it was 8 bays, and then we did a remodel that I was heavily involved in about 2 years before I bought it.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was back in 13, so it was about 4 years before I bought it. And so we remodeled everything, made it 17 bays, and then we were predominantly Honda and Toyota and Lexus based. So he had a dream of that store being those brands. We were mostly focused on that. We were a specialty store. at the
Oh,
time.
interesting. Okay.
Yep.
So now obviously you do everything at that current one. And then when did you go ahead and start opening the Euro one?
Bought that store from Tommy January of 17. And then we bought, let's see, it was October of 21 that we bought the Plano store. That's European, so German European imports. We bought that store, and we've had it now for what, 15, 16 months.
Nice. Okay.
Yep.
Sweet. So and just to give everyone, like, again, these locations are in the greater Dallas area.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, Michael, you live in Nashville. At what point did you move to Nashville?
In 18, I was struggling with store one, a year and a half into ownership, roughly. And yeah, I was struggling to pay the bills, and joined a company, coaching company, ShopFix, and just watched a bunch of videos, got some coaching, and kind of blew up really fast. So it was really cool. And then a year later, they asked me to become a coach for them. Just to give you some targets, like when I bought Tommy out in 17, we were doing 1.8 million. The end of 2018, after being coached with ShopFix, we ended up at 3.6 million.
That's amazing.
So it was some pretty substantial growth. And then, so 2019, they asked me to be a coach. So I became a coach for them. Absolutely loved it. And honestly, like coaching was always my dream since I was probably 2021.
Mhm.
Like I knew I wanted to be a coach of some sort. I just love helping and changing people's lives, right? And
Yeah.
so the shop, I knew I couldn't be an automotive coach without owning a shop. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't going to work, right? I needed to be in the fire. I needed to be through the pains and everything that a shop owner experiences. So the shop was a tool to get me to coaching,
Gotcha.
right?
Yep.
I originally wanted to have my own coaching company. Like that was a dream of mine. And then I found Aaron Stokes and Shopfix, and like all the values lined up, and absolutely loved everything he was teaching and all that. So yeah, joined as a coach. So fast forward to February of 2020, they asked me to join the leadership team here in Nashville. And so we're trying to figure everything out. Like, is this going to work? Do they really want me? Can I provide value? Like all those things. So we're testing the waters in February. And then you know what happened in March of 2020? Like
Yep.
COVID happened. So that was kind of crazy. We got through that year. They kept me around. They still kept me around. So I guess I'm providing some value for them. But yeah, fast forward to today, I'm now the lead coach for ShopFix, and just absolutely love helping other coaches and clients and speaking and all that, and then pouring into my people too. At my two stores that are in Dallas, that was crazy transition. So
Yeah, and we're gonna dig in and talk a little bit. But just to double check, so it sounds like were you living in Nashville when you purchased the Plano location?
yes,
Okay,
so
then I definitely want to talk a lot about that, how that was made
yep,
possible. Um,
yep,
but then first, let's talk about the high tech auto, your original location that
yep.
grew to 17 bays, and just
Mm-hmm.
getting it ready first to, I mean, an amazing growth, 1.8 to 3.6 over a year time frame. That's amazing, regardless of who the coach is and what you implemented. Obviously, the owner have to have a big hands-on process there. So what would you say are kind of the most important things that kind of enabled the team to be able to accomplish such an amazing feat?
Yeah, it's all about the team. It's all about the people,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Um, and the only way that you will win is if your teammates win first.
Mhm.
So if technicians turn a lot of hours and they get paid a lot of money, they win. If
Mhm.
service advisors take in more cars and have a higher ARO, like they win, right? But the only way that happens is if customers are served in the best way possible. So if your customer experience is amazing, everybody else wins. So by putting all the teammates first, they put the customers first. That took me a while to figure out and get the right people, get the rock stars that actually wanted it. I've had a lot of people on the team that probably didn't necessarily want to perform at a certain level, and that's okay. There's always a spot there for you, but like, I want people who want to perform at a high level, best customer experience, best customer service. They want to go after more. So I think finding those people and then helping them win is 1000% key.
Awesome. So I think that's a very common question though, that I hear all the time. It's like, okay, well, how do I find those people? Or like, do I just find someone with some of the right qualities and mold them into that person? Like, what is your tactic that you kind of have in finding those right people?
So, and I would say that what I think today as a rock star is nowhere near what I thought was a rock star 2 years ago. And definitely wasn't even dreaming about 5 or 10 years ago. So as I've gotten better and better people, I think I've asked better questions in the interviews. I think I've said better things to attract better people. But I've gone after attitude first. Like, if you have an awesome attitude, and maybe the skills and the talent need a little bit of training, or we can figure that out, right?
Yeah.
But if you have the attitude that you want to be at this place, we can make something out of that.
So that attitude, I mean, that's a hard thing to gauge. I mean, in interviews is one thing. Some people are just good interviewers, so it's like, oh, it feels like they have a good attitude. Yep. So how do you go about fielding that?
So I asked a lot of different questions. If you were an animal, what would you be? Right? Things like that are just crazy, out of the wall questions. And a couple of other ones like, hey, what do you like to do on the weekends with the family? Like, what are your lifetime goals? What are you trying to accomplish in 5 years? Where are you trying to go? Like, I want to make sure that they're driven, right? But then also, like, hey, tell me about somebody that you mentored at the last place you worked at, or at the place before that. Tell me something, or tell me how you changed your team at your last job. Right. So asking questions about how they interacted with everybody else tells me a lot about that person. Right. I know that they're either going to integrate into a team, or they were the person that was dominating the team and not allowing any growth. Right. Gotcha. Or somebody that just didn't care.
Yeah, true.
And then another one is, describe your favorite boss. Right. Or describe your favorite. If I could wave a magic wand, what would your favorite shop look like? And so getting them to think of those things, and like, yeah, just some out of the box questions will allow you to narrow that down a lot.
Gotcha. So I love those last two questions a lot. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of questions that you mentioned that I'm like, that's good. Things I want to implement on my own interview process.
Sure.
But in terms of like a boss, an ideal shop, like, what is an answer that you think is a great answer that you'd want like someone to give, that then shows that they're hungry or that they have the right attitude, things like that? What would you expect to hear from them?
Yeah, so I would want to hear, the boss is always bringing new ideas and coming up with different ways to increase customer experience, or different ways to make the workplace better, or different ways to innovate and improve. And I would want to hear training. Like, the keyword would be like training. You have no idea how many people that we hire that just, they don't want training. They're like, I'm done. And they think that they've met a level or they've arrived. I don't want that team player on. I don't want that person on the team, right?
Yeah.
I don't want anybody who thinks that they've arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a coach, I'm a lead coach, but I'm still training, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. Like, I will sit through anybody's class. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear something or pick up a nugget from somebody. It doesn't matter where or who. We have to always be improving. So I want to definitely hear that. I want to hear, I always want to beat last year's numbers, or I always want to beat what I did last year. I always want to continue improving myself, or just different team activities. I want to hear things like that. I want to hear something around the team environment.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear them go, yeah, and I would love to pour into these, and like somebody mentioned, I want to be a part of the intern program. And so like those are keywords. Those are things I want to hear.
Right. I love that. And so you run, I heard the mention of intern program. Do you run something like that at
We
your shop?
are just dipping our toes into that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
And then in terms of the people that are training the interns, those are just internal team members already
yep,
that you have in
yep.
place. Oh,
Yeah, it's typically a master certified technician. Yep.
very cool. Okay, awesome. And then I don't want to dig too deep into this portion, but
Sure.
always a common question: how do you find them? Like, is it a pipeline, a bench that you just have nurtured for a long time? Is it you slap something on Indeed? Like, what does that look like to you?
So I kind of envision it. Um, you don't know. Do you know sometimes somebody can say something 1,000 different ways,
Mm-hmm.
but then that last day they say it differently? Or maybe they didn't say it differently at all, but I was in a place to actually hear it.
Gotcha. Yep.
Everybody is going to go through a struggle at their current job, no matter if you're working for me or anybody else. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're always going to have those days like, I wonder what it looks like X,
Yeah.
right? Where else can I go? And so you always have to have what I would call, I used to, growing up, I did a lot of striper fishing, right? So we would have, planers going on the side of the boat. We'd have 4 or 5 of those, and then we'd have balloons on the back. We would have like 12 poles in the line for 3 or 4 of us, right?
Uh-huh.
You don't know where the fish are going to be when you're out, trolling the lake and trying to find them. But if we didn't have poles in the water, there's no way we would get fish.
Yes.
So no matter what you're doing, always have ads out. Always have you put yourself out there so people can find you, because you don't know the day or the hour. Our last service advisor we just hired, or one of the last few, probably 4 or 5 months ago, we put our ad out that morning, and he called his wife and was like, I'm done. There's no way I'm leaving this place, blah, blah, blah. She found our ad for him that morning, sent it to him, and said, hey, you should check these people out. They look pretty cool. But like, our ad and the timing and all that had to work out perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a rock star. He's at our Euro location, but like, we had to have that ad out there or they wouldn't have found us. You also have to be on, the first page of wherever you're looking, whether it's Indeed or Craigslist or Career Builder or wherever, Facebook, it doesn't matter. Like, be available and have yourself where you're easily found.
Yeah. No, definitely 100% agree. I always, not to say the word negatively, but there is a lot of complaining about it all. Like, yes, absolutely, finding text is very difficult right now.
Sure.
But
Sure.
if you're not doing anything to find them, then I feel like there's no room for the complaints to happen. Like, you need to be putting out as many lines, like you're mentioning, to be able to find them.
It is difficult. Like, it's no secret that our industry is shortage of technicians,
Mm-hmm.
or people in general. Like, yeah, of course, there's not that. Yeah, like, the talent pool is very small.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have to do a better job of trying to find the people that are out there, because there are people out there and they are looking.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does no good to complain about it.
100%. All right. So we're going to circle back now. So you have the team members, you found them through kind of an intensive interview process that you've kind of developed over the years. And
Yep.
now you know that they have the right attitude. But just having attitude obviously doesn't take them the rest of the way. There obviously
Sure.
has to be systems and things implemented to
Yep.
even get you to the point to start being that absentee. So I want to hear about the systems and processes that you felt like this is what is best to put in place to even get me to my end goal of being a coach and being further away kind of deal.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, and I hear that word, process a lot, or systems or whatever.
Yeah.
It always remember that good people will trump good processes every day. So if you have chaos in your store or whatever, sure, you can refine some processes and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's good people communicating with each other and serving the team. So attitude is a huge deal with that, right? And by the way, if you have chaos in your shop, like, have 2 huddles a day. That's the number one thing I probably tell shop owners. Like, have a huddle in the morning, talk about all the cars that are on the lot, and then have a huddle before you go home and talk about all the cars that are on the lot. And all of a sudden, the entire shop comes together. This is service writers, technicians, manager, foreman, whatever you have. Like, the entire team comes together for 5 minutes. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And just go through those cars, and all of a sudden, like, everybody's on the same page and like, oh, I need to do this. Everybody knows when they come in the morning, I need to do this. And maybe there's a problem that arises, but they handle it quickly. So processes, that's a huge one for us, is that huddle, for sure.
Oh, okay. I like that a lot.
Onboarding is absolutely crucial. That's where all the processes start, right? This is the way we do things. And I always tell people, I'm like, we are totally open to doing to new stuff. Like, when we were doing 1.8 million, like, our processes were way different. I mean, last year we finished up with almost 4.5 million at the Denton location. Like, there's a lot of processes that changed in between, and the processes we're doing today are probably not going to be the process we do in 6 months.
No.
There's going to be small tweaks, and it's constant improving. So I think, just telling, like, hey, this is our process today. If you find something that you think needs to be tweaked, let us know. But during the first 30 days, just try the process out first. And then let's meet after 30 days and let's talk about anything that you may have found or want to improve on. But, as far as like handing them a book with all the processes written down, sure, you can have that out there, but it's way different than actually walking them through the process. And more important than any process you will ever tell people is the why behind that process. So we believe when we onboard people, we tell people why we do an inspection the way we do, why we bring a customer out to do the oil change and look over their vehicle, and the why we explain our hey, if you see or smell something like on your car, like after you leave, like, please call me or text me or email me, whatever you need to do, we'll take care of it. Like, you need to say the why behind everything that is in place.
Okay, I like that a lot.
If you can give people the why, they understand the reason we do it the way we do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then it reminds me of have you read the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek?
I haven't read that one, but I know of it.
Yeah. But yeah, the concept, I mean, he's a very good like public speaker in a sense, but like his start with why is, in terms of like how to get the rest of the team bought in, is absolutely, if they resonate with the why, everything just kind of falls into place. So I love that a lot. And so now we have the team, they understand the why. Obviously, processes important to a level, but and from my understanding with you, it's like them communicating in those huddles are like night and day kind of difference makers for you, which I love. So then what gave you then the courage to then be able, hey, I'm gonna try be out for a week or be out for a month? Or were you like, you know what, I'm just gonna go and then we'll see how it plays? Like, well, how did that process look?
So I knew where my vision was going
Uh-huh.
way back before, I even bought the store.
Okay.
Even when I was a service advisor on the counter, like I knew where my vision was going and taking me. And so I knew that day was coming. And the second that I had my general manager like trained up and ready to go, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of bored. Maybe, I mean, let's be real. Owners that go in every single day, do you actually need to go in every day, or are you going in and like messing up or trying to tweak something? I can, if I'm in the mix, I can micromanage really bad. Like it's one of my faults, and I have to work on that. And I can, when as the owner, when I come in to the stores, I can pull authority away from the leadership that's down there if I'm not careful about how I approach that.
Mm-hmm.
So I found myself kind of in that pattern of kind of messing things up. And I was like, okay, I love this coaching thing. I need to, kind of devote more time to that. Here's the deal. This is what I expect. And once we had that down after, a year, then it was this opportunity came up, and I was talking to TJ and Aaron, and yeah, I was like, well, might as well try it. Let's see what happens. So, and it wasn't like a full on move. It was like I was up there for, up in Nashville for a week, and then I was down in Texas for a week, and then, it was on and off for a week or two, and then it was 2 months or 3 months, and then, eventually wound up in the full time after about 9 months to a year. So
Man, that's super amazing. That I know a lot of owners are envious of being in that position to even be able to stay at home for a day and be like, "Whoa, wait, is everything okay?" But you're obviously now much further away where you can't just drive there overnight to just check and that same day and drive home.
right.
So how do you go about that accountability factor of them feeling like, "Oh, well, Michael's far away. I don't need to worry about this," to like, no, they're still being very passionate about the business and being able to have those check-ins.
Yeah, so I think your key leadership people are absolutely key.
Mhm.
Um, Trusting them, but at the same time saying, "Hey, here's my expectations, here's my standards. If you drop below this, we're going to have a problem."
Mhm.
And so you keep these happening and these numbers happening. I tell my manager, happy customers, happy employees, and happy bank account, we're good. And so we have, expectations around KPIs and things like that. But setting clear expectations is probably my top three that shop owners don't do well.
Mm. So
And
like,
so
so what are those expectations? What are some like, are they are more data based, or it's like these are the number expectations, or is it a different feel that
it,
you sort of do?
it kind of, I mean, it's kind of in all facets. So, financials, there's, a gross profit dollar threshold. Like every week, this is what we need to hit. For every month, this is what we need to hit. This is the net profit a dollar goal. This is what we've got to hit. If you fall below this, we have a problem.
Mm.
And their pay plans are set up around those things.
Yeah.
So if the shop doesn't get paid, there's no bonus, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of holding that sideways pressure and holding accountable for marketing. So one of the biggest things like I have to provide as owners is phone calls, right? A lot of people say it's cars, but it's no, I have to provide phone calls to make the shop go.
Yeah.
Well, I expect the shop to convert a percentage of those phone calls.
Yeah.
So just knowing that call conversion ratio, and for marketing, and then you have your financials, and then like the lifts and things like that. Like I still fly down and I'll do a meeting with everybody, and the first thing I open up with our meeting is I usually say a prayer, and then I go right into, all right, guys, is there anything that we need to address equipment wise? Are there any lifts or anything? And they know I'm going to ask for that list. And so the managers get egg on their face if they haven't asked, how
Okay.
about the safety things? And so there's ways of holding accountability and setting those expectations. But I'd say in every facet, there's some sort of a expectation set for whatever we're dealing with: financials, marketing, operations, or else is in the store.
Okay. Yeah. And so how often are you meeting with like, say, the key leaders? Like, I'm guessing it's over Zoom. And is it like once a week, once a day? Like, what does it
Yep.
look
So we do a 30-minute weekly meeting,
like? Okay.
Tuesdays, in the morning. So that gives them Monday. Monday we'll intake sometimes 80 or 90 cars.
Hmm.
So Monday kind of gets a little crazy. So Tuesdays is a good day to kind of assess, how do we do last week? And so I basically ask them three questions, and they've got to answer those questions at each location. Um, but those are basically like, did we meet our financial goal? Yes or no? If no, what are we doing about it this week? Whether it's more cars, higher ARO, or higher profitability, GP percentage.
Yep.
And then the next question is, how are we training the front staff this week specifically? And how are we training the technicians specifically this week? And so I know they can self-diagnose the store, and that's how we kind of have our communication and set accountability, expectations, and all that every week.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, that seems like it's definitely a well-oiled machine now at this point.
It's a process of, I'm not going to say we've done it for 3 years, but we
Yeah.
may have done it for the last 6 months this way, and it's working out really well. It may change to something else,
Yeah.
down the road, but it's that constant process of improvement.
Absolutely. Okay. So now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about
Yeah.
now this new Euro location. And so
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about, now you're already in Nashville and now you're looking at another location, purchasing that, setting up the team, setting up the processes all from far away.
Yep.
So one, I guess, what mentally made you feel like, yep, this is the course we want to go? And then I want to talk about the steps of like what that looked like while being far.
Yeah, so my leadership team was pushing me to get a second location. They were, they're trying to move up. Obviously, they're trying to
Hmm.
get uh, more responsibility, whatever. And so they found the store actually, and I had told them like, hey, um, basically I'm super overwhelmed at ShopFix right now. Got a lot going on. I
Yeah.
don't know that I can pursue a second location right now. And I know we've been talking about it for a year, but I'm just telling you guys where I'm at. Like I don't have the energy to invest in looking for a place or finding it or anything like that. Like you're gonna have to give me like 6 months to a year. Let me get through some projects I'm working on, things like that. And so I tell them this, and they're like, "Hey, if we find something, can we throw it at you?" I'm like, "Yeah, like by all means, if you want to take if you want to take a lead on this, then go for it." They found something 3 weeks later.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, "Are you serious?" So I had to put, all right, guys, here's the list. Da 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 da. Did it meet all this criteria? And we're going back and forth, and I ended up doing the negotiation with the broker, and I wasn't super happy with the location,
Uh-huh.
but it was in an area that I wanted to be. Um, and it had a lot of traffic count, like the next street over, right?
Gotcha.
If in terms of location, it's probably a B location.
Uh-huh.
Um, I we signed everything. It was cheap enough. It was a decent deal. I didn't think it was a great deal, but it was a decent deal. I showed up, flew in the night before closing, and saw the property for the first time. Don't recommend that to anybody ever. Don't do that. Um, I looked at a lot of pictures in Google Maps and Google Earth and
Yeah, yeah.
Street View and all that. It's awesome, but it's not the same. I walk in, this place is a mess. totally doable, totally fixable. But I was like, man, it's going to take a little bit more work than I thought.
Yeah.
It ended up being good. I had to relearn marketing for Euro. I had to learn how Euro stores operate and all of that. Like I've never worked in a European store. It's different than all makes and models like Denton was. You know, I changed Denton from Honda, Toyota, Acura, Lexus to all makes and models because I wanted, you know, I had a pretty big vision and there
Yep.
just wasn't enough Hondas and Toyotas in Denton, Texas, to you know get to where I needed to go. So I had kind of I had relearned a market earlier, and then here I was again, like, how do we send out mailers? How do we do Google Ads? How do we do, you know, Facebook? Like all these things, and so I definitely learned a lot on that one.
Nice, nice. And so, like, I mean, I'm guessing. So, how often did you? So, you flew back, obviously, for the closing process. How
Yep.
often did you then have to fly back and get things up and running? How long did that take to kind of get things up and running?
So I was in that store 7 total days the first year.
That's crazy. Only 7 days, but okay.
And I mean, that speaks a lot to the management team, the leadership
I
team
agree.
on the ground. Like, yeah, we're having a lot of phone calls and conversations and discussions and stuff, but ultimately, like, hey, do this, do this. And it was honestly easier for me to spot problems because I'm sitting at the
Mm,
100,000 foot view. I can see things through numbers. The thing I don't have is the feeling that they have, or, you know, the eyes on the ground, if you will,
yep.
and seeing everything happen. So I had a good vantage point, and I was able to coach some things, and I saw some issues, and I can say, hey, what about this? What about this? And I will tell you, if you are thinking about remote or being an offsite owner, don't make statements. Ask a lot of questions. You don't know. The problem is, like, I didn't know that the district manager just got chewed out by a customer or four customers, or had a technician walk out, or had, you know, a car fall off the lift, or whatever happened. And here I am calling them up and going, hey, what about this and this and this and this and this? Like, it's not a good day.
Hmm.
Not a good time for that phone. You don't know what they're going through. So asking them, hey, how's it going? How's your day? Do you have time to talk to me? And then when you do have a list of things that they need to check into, ask those in question forms, never accusatory statements.
I
Took
love
me
it.
a long time to learn that one.
Yeah, I think that's so hard being as a leader, as an owner,
Yep.
not even if your statement doesn't come from a bad place, where you're
Yep.
not even meaning it for it to sound
Right.
accusatory, but
Right.
naturally in their perspective, in their mind, they're like, "Oh, is he going to blame me for this, or are they going to blame me for this and this and
Yep.
this and so yeah, I love that you're almost moving the ownership to them. Like
Yeah.
question, they answer. Hey, you come up with the answer for me, so I can best understand. So
That's right.
I love that shift in mindset there.
That is probably the number one thing to focus on is asking more questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that shows how it's capable of your
Yeah.
7 days at the shop within the first calendar year. I, I wasn't saying crazy in the sense of oh my goodness you're insane. And I was crazy as in like that's
I am a
amazing,
little bit.
like amazing to be able to accomplish such a feat in my opinion. I like for any owner in any type of business to being able to accomplish that. I think it speaks volumes to leadership teams and your communication style to be
Sure.
able to make sure that happens.
Yeah, it was crazy. So when we bought that store, it did $15,000 the month that we the previous month to us buying it.
Oh,
And so we ended up that first calendar year at 1.2 million. So it and that store had never done anything close to that. They
yeah.
were doing in their heyday, I think the best they did was like 350, 360 a year. Um, so it was pretty cool to go in there and just apply what we knew, our processes, apply, you know, finding the people. And man, they've got a rock star crew right now. It's pretty amazing. That store will do 2.4 million this year.
That's super awesome. So
Yeah.
then the people though, so how many people did you have to bring over from your like current location, or did you have to start like they're just one person, you started everyone new? Like what did that look like?
I brought one technician over.
Wow.
That's it. And we trained the service advisor at store one for about a month, and then he went over to store two.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Man, that's super amazing. And so
Yep.
in terms of then, so now you're managing two from afar. Is to not you've done it like the whole
Yep.
process end to end of like buying, acquiring all from afar and running kind of a smooth ship. Are you planning on replicating this process again in the future? What does that look like for you?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Nice, awesome.
Um, yeah, so store two, once we got it up to doing the $2 million range, we were like, okay, we'll go to store three. And the reason, so one of my rule of thumbs, I can't rush down there and like jump on the front counter if I need to, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not happening. So one of my rule of thumbs for a store is it's got to be able to support three people at the front counter at
Hmm.
all times. So to support three people at the front counter, you've got to be doing at least 1.5, if not 2 million. And so once a store reaches that threshold, then we can move on to another store as well.
Nice. Okay.
So
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Dang, I just had a question. Why?
sorry.
Like it just like flew right by me. And I was like, oh, that's a good question I want to ask. And uh,
Yeah,
maybe it'll come back and circle to me.
sure.
But then I guess in terms of now that like coaching definitely sounds like it's your passion, and I'm sure like
Mhm.
you're an amazing, capable coach. So what would you find as like the top three things that you're seeing like an owner needs to work on in order to get to be to that level of absentee owner trusting their team?
Yeah. So, the first one is obviously you got to have the right team.
Yep.
So hire the right attitude, hire the right skill set, hire that rock star person. The second one is setting those clear expectations for those people.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is how do you lead your team? How do you do it? For me, and this could be just a me thing, but for me, it was like asking questions and not making statements. And so that took a lot of leadership practice on my end to do. And I guarantee you, I probably failed this morning at it, right? But like asking those questions to empower your team, to get the why and get to that core. I would say those are the top three.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it sounds like you just kind of almost the owner needs to humble themselves a little bit and kind
Yep.
of put themselves in the other people's shoes to best
Yep.
understand. But now I remembered my question. So thankful. I'm grateful it came back to me. So I'm curious as to why you decided the second shop to be Euro specific instead of also like you already made an all makes all model work. Why
Yep.
change? And you, like you said, you had to learn everything new. It was different. Why? Like what made you take that? I guess that challenge.
So it was interesting. I talked to you about like relearning the marketing for
Uh-huh.
a Euro store.
Yeah.
Our original intent was to go in there and make it an all makes and model store. The problem was they specialized in Mercedes for a long time.
Mm.
They were working on a lot of other things. And so I switched the marketing to all makes and models, and they kind of trickled in. And it was interesting. I don't know this for sure, but when you advertise as a specialty Euro store, people assume that you're going to be a lot higher priced in the Honda and Toyota realm, versus the Mercedes realm.
Oh, okay.
So they just think that all your prices are the same, when we have, obviously different pricing for domestic and Asian and different pricing for Euro.
Yep.
Um, so I could never get traction with that. And so I shifted probably 2 or 3 months into it and said, you know what? I'm just going to focus on Euro and what that store was or has been for 30 years. And let's just tell people that we'll service all of their vehicles. We are capable and we have the tools, and obviously with the other store, we have all the knowledge that we need for any car walking into the door. So that was a shift that I had to do. And now we're working on more and more domestic and Asian vehicles, but we're also increasing the Euro side too. So yeah, I didn't go into that store intentionally doing that, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense. It just kind
Yeah.
of sometimes you've got to go after what the market will.
No, I love that. And being adaptable. I think
Yep.
if you were, again, not humble enough to be like, you know what, no, my way works. I
Right.
need this one to be my way.
Yep.
Maybe the results wouldn't have been as fortuitous as it currently is. So the fact that
Sure.
you're recognizing, you know what, this is not working. Let's shift and do this way. I think it's going to work
Yep.
out better. And obviously it did. So,
Yeah, and that took a lot of coaching from. So we have a lot of coaches for ShopFix, and I was reaching out to them like, "Hey guys, you're a Euro store, like you own a Euro store, like it's one of the things I love about ShopFix. Like all of our coaches are shop owners, are current shop owners, right? So, like just reaching out to them, like, hey, did this work? Did you ever try to do this? Did you ever try to go general? They're like, whoa, you need to do specific this and this and this and this. So just seeking their advice definitely helped. That was not me like coming up that on my own. I was
yeah.
like, what do I do here? This is different. I'm not used to this ball game.
Yeah. I think surrounding yourself with those people. So I mean, for those that don't have a coach, one thing that I've learned just through doing this podcast alone. So we have a fair amount of shop owners. The most common theme is that they have a coach, or I mean, yes, even if they are a coach themselves, they still have a coach. Like they're just because they feel like you're a coach, you don't need any more coaching. Obviously, it's not true. Everyone needs to be able to grow and
Yep.
lead. So regardless of if they end up choosing ShopFix or a different coaching agency,
Sure.
I think it's crucial to have a coach on your side to help you when times get rough. Because as an entrepreneur, life is like this
Yep.
constantly. So
Yep.
helping you alleviate when things go down so that you don't spiral to go even further, that's where that coach comes into play. Like, hey, I literally have dealt with this for years and years and years. So here's what I do to help kind of lift you back up. So,
Absolutely.
so yeah.
Absolutely. So true.
Well, in terms of like just as we wrap up and finish here, it sounds like you are an amazing leader for your team. You developed an amazing team. So in terms of the best way for an owner to learn to be a better leader, what would you say that is there a certain book that maybe you recommend them reading? Is there a certain podcast you recommend them listening to? I mean, obviously this podcast, but
Obviously.
outside of this one, like is there a certain medium that you think is like, hey, you should start here and then kind of go from there?
There's a lot of books I could recommend. I would say just reading. If you can learn about you, need to look it up probably what book. Can't remember what the title was.
I know.
Uh,
If you can't find it right now, no worries. We can drop it in the comments afterwards as well.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. But one of my favorite books of all time is called The Goal. And it just talks about the processes of a manufacturing plant and just like all the bottlenecks and the chaos and the numbers and everything. And it's a failing business, and they tell it in a story format. That's a huge book to just know about, if you're in an automotive business, like workflow process through a shop. And the Think and Grow Rich was big for me to kind of open up to my mindset a lot. Man, there's so many books. We can probably drop a bunch in the
Yeah,
comments.
for sure.
The Gap and the Gain with Dan Sullivan's books are good. I love Patrick Lencioni's books. What was the one? I'll find it. Relentless is a great book by Tim Grover. And then yeah, I'll find the one that I just read. Six Types of Working Genius. So that is huge for you to know what style are you and what are what are your gifts? What is your working genius? That's a great book. But I'd say learning more about you and like your style, because what works for me is not going to work for another shop owner. Like we're all, I love how, God wired us in unique ways and unique threads and in different things. I would say just finding out who you are and how to motivate people are the two biggest things. And that's podcast, Success Leaves Clues. I love that podcast, Thomas Hayes, and then yours. And there's a couple other good ones out there as well, but definitely just constant learning, constant improvement.
Yep. Yeah. I absolutely agree. Absolutely love that. Yeah. Just always push yourself to learn more, because you never know enough. And you never know when that next book, maybe there's just a one sentence in the whole book that then just opens up your mind to a whole new world of possibilities that, that happens all the time for people. So never, just because you read one book and I was like, that didn't do anything for me. Don't stop there. Obviously just keep going and going for the role. Michael, thank you so much for being on with us today. For those people that maybe have questions or want to reach out to you afterwards, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Facebook Messenger is good. Michael Rosenberger, you can just send me a direct message there. That'd be the best thing. You can also shoot me an email, michael@shopfixacademy.com.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you, Michael. Thank you all those who are still listening and watching. Thank you for being here. Make sure to leave a like or subscribe at the bottom of the channel. But again, we'll talk to you guys again next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey.